Good morning, everybody. Crafting Journey here. That Journey Chick on Instagram. I'm so excited. I just passed the 1,600 subscriber mark yesterday. Yay! That's exciting to me. Anyway, guess what I'm dressed for today? I got comfy clothes on. Uh, and look, sneakers. Yeah, no, not go to the gym. I have to go do a stress test. So I went to work yesterday, and let's start by diamond painting, shall we? Look, almost done, almost done. Just got some stuff to fill in up here, like the Cheshire Cat and her headband. And I wanted to finish this last night, but it just wasn't happening. I was so tired last night by the time I got home. So I go to work, and of course I'm having the chest pain again. I mean, it hasn't gone away. So I I sent an email down to the girl that works in the cath lab. She's the head of the cath lab. Yeah, she and I are friends. And I said, hey, I won't say her name, but I said, hey, who would you go to for a cardiologist? And she told me some names. So I recognize one of the names because I work very closely with him in the medical staff office. I'm like, oh, I love him. So I call his office and I get an appointment for Thursday. So I email her back and I said, thank you, here's who I chose, and I have an appointment with him Thursday. She's like, well, what's going on? And so I email her, I tell her what's going on, and she's like, well, he's standing right here, and he said, go over to his office right now, and he'll meet you there. I'm like, oh, just, it's nice to have friends, isn't it? So I go over to his office, and there he is. He's such a sweetheart. And so we sit and we chat for a little while, and he listens to my heart, which they didn't do that in the ER. Nobody listened to my heart. And he checked my carotids, and he said, well, first of all, Rebecca, and if you had chest pain for 10 days, you'd be dead. So it's probably not cardiac. I just wanted some reassurance that it's not my heart, So he said, however, he said, he looked at my EKG and he said, it looks good, your labs looked good, which, I knew all that from the ER. And he says, but you've got all these risk factors, including a little extra weight. And I'm thinking, oh, he put that very diplomatically, didn't he? Just a little extra weight. So, come in, why don't we do a stress test? And I said, okay. He says, but if you continue, if that doesn't show anything and you continue to have this pain, then the next step would be to do an angiogram. Which is, it's not invasive, really. They just put a dye in and they look at you under the, whatever. Anyway, so it's like going to have a cardiac cath, except you don't get the cardiac cath. You just get the film part of it. They just look at your vessels. So I said, okay. So I was reassured, but today I am going in for a stress test at noon. So I got my sneakers on. He's like, are you sure with your knee you can do that? I'm like, yeah, my knee really hasn't been bothering me too much lately. And He says it's only like 10 minutes and it's only a little bit of an incline. Um, I'm like, okay, I could probably do it. We'll see. I don't know. Fingers crossed. Um, but I actually felt better after, talking to him and him reassuring me that it's probably not my heart. So it's just this damned anxiety. So no caffeine this morning. I can't have any coffee. Yeah. Well, thank God the test is at noon because I'm gonna grab me a coffee afterwards. I am falling in love with iced coffee from Sonic. Oh my God, is that good? Oh, so good. Um, so I'll probably get me one of those on the way back from the stress test. So I get my water and then I proceed to spill it all over myself. I got up this morning, I did my hair, got it all curly, it looked great, and then I had to take the trash out. And it is like a wind tunnel out there. Like the clouds are just zooming by. True Wichita, Wizard of Oz kind of weather. And I'm just hoping my trash is not going to be blowing all over the neighborhood before the trash man comes. Anyway, let's get to the segments today, okay? Because I've got a lot of stuff to report. This show may go longer than 30 minutes now that I'm doing these 2 trials. But, okay. But what national day is it? It's National Take Your Lunch to Work Day, which is so easy for me because I work at home. So I don't have to take I take my lunch from the paper plate in the kitchen to the lounge chair in the living room. Because I like to watch TV while I eat. It's a terrible habit, but it's one that I've gotten into. I noticed my son, he does the same thing. So it must have been something that I did to my family when we were growing up. I don't know, but yes, I do like to eat in front of the television. Terrible, terrible habit. I know, but I do it. So take your lunch to work day. You know what? If you do work outside the home, or this is for school too, it's so much healthier. It's cheaper. You can control your portions. You can put healthy food in there. Like yesterday for lunch, I was at work, but I picked something healthy. I picked some grapes and some cheese, and it was delicious. Or you can put some nuts in there, some almonds, or maybe some carrots with some ranch dip. I prefer blue cheese. Um, so you can add all kinds of healthy elements to your lunch that would be much better than the burger and fries option. I mean, it's nice once in a while to have the burger and fry option. Now, at the hospital where I work, they have a nice cafeteria, and they put out this fresh roasted turkey that they'll make sandwiches out of. Oh my God! But then by the time you put it on the bread and the lettuce and tomato and all the junk, that's fine, and then you get the homemade chips that go with it. Oh my God! Um, I can have a heart attack just thinking about it. Those chips are amazing. They literally homemade chips at work. And they have homemade cookies, peanut butter, chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin. Oh my God, work is ridiculous. I'm glad I'm only there once a week. Because at home I choose like yogurt, you know, or maybe a hard-boiled egg to get a portion of protein in there. I try to make healthy choices. I have bread here, but it's in the freezer. If I want to actually have a sandwich, I'll just take a couple slices out. But I can't tell you the last time I made myself a sandwich. I don't know. I'm not that hungry at lunchtime. Maybe because I eat so much crap for breakfast, like 2 cups of coffee and a donut, and then I'm not hungry for lunch. I don't know. Anyway, National Take Your Lunch to Work Day. And did you know the first lunchbox? Who was on the first lunchbox? Any guesses? Mickey Mouse. Yes. Crystal, Mickey Mouse was on the first lunchbox. I think that's funny. And there's such cute lunchboxes out there for adults. Oh my God, so cute. So check those out and bring your lunch to work. If you're working outside the home, or maybe you're like quarantine Barbie and you're um, indulging on salt and sweet snacks. I loved that quarantine Barbie. The Eleanor Roosevelt Barbie and the quarantine Barbie. I'm going to find those because those are fantastic. Anyway, judge, jury, and journey. Do, 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 do. Let's start out with the George Floyd murder trial. And I add the word murder in there because George Floyd's not on trial. Derek Chauvin is on trial. But everybody knows it as the George Floyd murder trial. So that's what we're going to refer to it as, the George Floyd murder trial. So apparently, no word from the appellate court that these proceedings should stop. So the judge proceeded with jury selection. Then, and it was going so slow. They were just, I listened for a little while, but each juror was the same questions, different answers, but same questions. So the juror that I actually did listen to the whole thing, he got picked to put on the jury. He's a chemist. He sounded like he could be very neutral. So he is on the jury. So at the end of the day, there are two jurors now, and they did decide that they're going to, instead of 2 alternates, they're going to have 4 alternates, which I think it's probably not a bad idea, just given the chance that that they might get tainted along the way. They might hear some sort of media coverage or something could happen to them. I don't know. But so there will be 16 jurors at the end of this jury selection, providing that we don't hear from the appellate court that brings everything to a halt. Then I have no idea whether they will release those jurors or just start over at another time. I don't know. And I haven't figured out whether this jury is going to be sequestered. I would think that they would be, but I don't know. That's an awfully costly thing to sequester 16 people for whatever length of time that is. So I made some notes about some of the questions. Now, the defense attorney, he opened every session by asking if you and I met, like just a random meeting, you didn't know me, we're just meeting, and what would you tell me about yourself? Interesting question. And then he proceeded to ask questions about, like, when you first got the jury summons, what went through your mind? Because apparently when they got the jury summons, they were notified that they were being summoned for this case, and they were given the questionnaire with the summons. So all that came at the same time. So he's like, what did you think when you got all that? Like, did you talk about it with anybody? And blah, blah, blah. So, and then he would ask, what did you think when you got to the courthouse and you saw all this fencing and, armor and guards? And so some interesting questions, to be sure. The one guy that he is on the juror, his response was, I felt safe. He says, I feel safe coming here with all of that. So, and there were no protests or anything like that yesterday. It was a very quiet day. Just the jury selection. So, let's talk about the Teresa Sievers murder trial. Now, this is the trial of her husband, Mark Sievers. And yesterday was such an interesting day. Oh my gosh. they brought in the crime scene tech, the lead crime scene tech, and she walked them through where she was and what the pictures were that she took. And one of the pictures that she pointed out was it was a 3-car garage. This is in Bonita Springs, Fort Myers, Florida. It's a nice neighborhood. 3-car garage. So around this, there's fencing in the backyard, and behind that fencing, my elbows in the. I had to take the washi tape off so I could see the schematic. So behind that, the fence, in the backyard, and the lock is from the inside on that fence. So in order to get the backyard, you have to climb the fence. But when you climbed that fence, there was a side door into the garage, and that side door was heavily damaged, like someone had pried it to get it open. And then there was, once you were in the garage, there was pictures of Teresa's suitcases because she had come home from the airport. I don't know if you remember, but I said she had her whole family, her husband Mark, her daughters. She had been celebrating a birthday with her family up in New York. So, but she had to come home Sunday night to take care of her medical practice on Monday. And her husband and daughters stayed. They were going to stay for 3 more days up there and visit relatives. So she comes home in the garage, and you can see from the photographs that the crime scene tech took that her suitcases were just kind of dropped right there in the doorway. She took them out of the van and just dropped them near the door, which I probably would have done the same thing. I'll come back and get them later. And then apparently proceeds into the house because her body is found in the kitchen. Now, to get to the kitchen, once you go from the garage into the house, you have to pass through a laundry room, and then you're into it's a open concept area. So the kitchen is kind of the first thing you come to. Anyway, so she kind of oriented the jury to the layout of the house and, that kind of thing. Now, this is something I made this note, and it's just totally, this is what jurors do. And myself included. Especially when you're getting bored. I looked at the defense attorney and the defendant, and then they put on the witness. His name is Wainwright. Now, all 3 of these guys look alike. I'm putting pictures up of them. All 3 of them look alike. They could be brothers, which I think is hilarious. And I'm sitting there thinking that defense attorney looks just like his client. And this defense attorney is not endearing himself to the jury. He is just, his demeanor is just weird, and like he's angry, and I once, I did a trial and with my boss. I was second chair in this particular trial. And the jury commented to me afterwards, "Your boss seemed angry." I'm like, oh, okay. But, they look at stuff like that. And I don't know if that influences their decision, but, you need to tone down the anger. So he's going to prove his point with the phone guy. Well, why are you going to argue with the phone guy? He's the phone guy. He analyzes phone records. Why are you going to argue with him? It's pick your battles, man. He's just a little old phone guy. He's like, I'm a tech nerd. It is what it is. I put it in the program, and here's how it comes out. And then the judge got mad because the defense, the phone guy, he had his phone records there. And then the defense guy gets up and makes this big deal about how they're redacted. That's a redacted version of your report. Isn't it true your report is 6,000? He's like, well, yeah, it's 6,000 pages because when you put these phone when you put a phone into this program and you print out an entire report, 6,500 pages. That's including your contacts, your photos, your everything. But if you want to narrow it down to just incoming and outgoing calls, which is what the redacted report was, because all that other stuff was really meaningless. Um, so the judge gets really angry, and he's like, "Listen, if you guys want to go through 6,000 pages, you can try your case any way you want to, but I promise these jurors that this trial would be done in X amount of time, and if we have to stay here till midnight to get that done, that's fine. So you guys just do it whatever way you want, but I'm gonna make you stay here till midnight." He was mad. I don't blame him because it's ridiculous. So then they bring in this Wainwright guy. Fascinating. For 3 hours, I was mesmerized by this guy. So, this is the guy that was Mark Sievers. Now, Mark Sievers is the husband. This was Mark Sievers' good friend. They grew up together in, I think it was Minnesota, or I don't know, somewhere. Um, it, so they grew up together. They met in like junior high, and they've been friends ever since, good friends ever since. So in comes Wainwright in his prison gear, his prison, he comes in with a guard and his lawyer, and he's in handcuffs, and he's a big guy. But as it turns out, he was very charming, very enduring towards the jury. And at one point, the judge said, "Don't talk to the jurors," because one of the jurors mentioned, "You're talking kind of softly. I can barely hear you." And he was apologizing to her, and the judge is like, "Don't talk to the jurors." So he explained, the attorney had him explain, "Why are you in a jumpsuit? Why are you, clearly you're in jail. What are you in jail for?" He says, "I am serving 25 years for the murder of Teresa Sievers." He killed Teresa Sievers. But he says, "I struck a deal that I would come in and I would cooperate and I would tell you that Mark Sievers, Teresa's husband, hired me to do it. Yes, I physically killed her, but I was hired by that man right there, over there at the defense table." Um, and then he proceeds to tell the story. For the next 3 hours, he is telling the story. Now, there's a third guy involved in this. So what happens is Mark Sievers, Teresa's husband, goes to Wainwright's wedding. And the night before the wedding, he says, "I need to talk to you about something personal." So they go off. There's like a party going on. So they go off by themselves. And he's telling him that, "My wife is going to leave me. She's having an affair, and I don't want her to take the girls." And they get interrupted. So that conversation really never went anywhere. So then on the day of the wedding, they're getting dressed for the wedding, and he's talking about it again. Mark is talking about trouble with his wife again. And Wayne is saying, "Well, what about counseling? And what about, working out some custody with the girls?" And he's like, "No, she won't let me. She'll take them and I'll never see them again." And then that conversation gets interrupted because they've got to go pick up something for the wedding. So they both get into, when Mark says, "I'll go with you. I'll drive you." So he drives Wainwright to pick up, it was like some deli stuff for it was kind of a do-it-yourself wedding. And so he had to go pick up some food for the wedding. So on the way there and on the way back, conversation ensues in which Mark asks him to kill his wife. And so, the attorney says, well, how did you leave it? And he's like, he offered me $100,000 to do it. And what I said was I would see what I could do to make it happen. He says, I really didn't want to commit. This is the guy's wedding day. He's like, I didn't want to commit, but, I was thinking about it. Oh my God. So, yeah, incredible. So anyway, the story proceeds that, he decides he'll make it happen. He's gonna make it happen. He might just be the middleman, but he'll help out his friend and he'll make it happen. And so they get these burner phones so they can communicate back and forth and not use their regular phones. And they proceed to plan this murder. So Wainwright enlists the help of another friend. And the reason he did that is because he said this guy has sort of a violent history, and I knew that he could go through with it. He says, I'm not sure I could, but I knew he could. So I enlisted him to help me. So these guys, Mark, Teresa's husband, sends him a check for $600 to cover the expenses of renting a car, driving down to Florida, killing his wife, and coming back. So I'm looking for the V's. Okay, here we go. So so he gets the $600, rents a car. He and this other guy get into the car, head down to Florida. And I'm kind of paraphrasing all this, and this guy is like, I found him to be very credible. I really did. Because the story is so detailed. And the attorney that was walking him through it was very good, very good. So they talk about how, they planned the entry into the home because Mark had given them the alarm codes. When I told you about that door that goes into the side of the garage was damaged, they did that on purpose to make it look like a burglary. That door was unlocked. They didn't need to damage the door. But then he describes the actual murder. So apparently she gets home from the airport 20 minutes earlier than what they had expected. So, Mark is in the garage playing around with his friend's motorcycle. He's like, I was mesmerized by this motorcycle. I don't know where the other guy was, but, we were waiting for her. They had not planned how they were going to accomplish this murder. Neither one had guns because they weren't allowed to carry guns. They were both felons. And we never heard what Wainwright's felonies were, but he had 5 prior felony convictions. I don't know what for. I'd be curious, but nonetheless, and the other guy was a felon, so they didn't have a gun. So Wayne says, well, I was just, I do martial arts. I do jujitsu, and I was just going to choke her till she went unconscious, so there was no struggle, and then we were going to kill her. But they didn't know how. They hadn't discussed how they were going to kill her, which I find very strange. Whatever. Anyway. So she surprises them. So all of a sudden, he's playing with a motorcycle. This garage door opens, and he jumps behind some boxes so the headlights don't hit him and she can't see him. So he waits behind those boxes. Now, the other guy is in the house. So, and apparently they had been told to make it look like a burglary, so he's in the house looking for valuables. Now there's been testimony that there was $50,000 in cash in various places in that house. They never found it, apparently. So she gets out of her van, she takes out her suitcases, and she drops him by the door. She doesn't see him. She drops him by the entryway into the laundry room to get into the house, and proceeds into the house. So he he was afraid that she was going to turn around and see him. So he follows her into the house, into the kitchen. Uh, he trips over the dog bowl, and he had been in the house before, and he's like, they have this dog bowl that's elevated because the dog's old, and that way he doesn't have to bend over to drink his water. And he goes, every time I'm in that house I trip over that bowl. Which, so he trips over the bowl, and when she turns around to see him, he had picked up a hammer that was in the laundry room, and he hit her over the head with the hammer. But not hard, I guess, because she's still fighting. So she's fighting him, and he's, hammering and only really getting her arms because she's fighting him off. And then the other guy comes in. Now he's got a hammer, and he starts hammering her head. Now, while this testimony is going on, they're showing they're showing Mark Daybell at the defense table, and his whole demeanor was just weird. He had like tissues in every pocket of his jacket. He kept getting them out, and he would take his glasses off, and then he would kind of sniffle into the tissue, and then he would look up and put his glasses on, and he would look fine. But I think he wanted it to look like he was being emotional. I wasn't buying it. So, and then they showed the family. Here's a picture of the family. This is them here listening to this testimony, the mother and the sister. And, as they're describing this murder, these women are bawling. Oh my God, they're bawling. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart. In any case, the day ends with that testimony. There was no cross-examination. That will happen today. It was gut-wrenching, absolutely gut-wrenching. But I did not buy what I felt to be fake emotion from the defendant. I don't think he was really crying. I've never seen anybody cry like that. Like on and off, on and off, on and off. And the other thing that he's doing during this trial, which is he's writing constantly writing, always writing in his yellow pad. And he's not showing it to anybody. And here's my thought. I'm thinking, well, maybe he's doing like a book to publish later on or something. I don't know, but I thought it was really funny. He's, I don't know what he's writing. And it's totally random. It's not, I don't think he's writing down, like, there's testimony going on. Certain testimony that why would you need to write? But he's writing furiously. He's writing, so. I'm curious about this cross-examination today. It should be very enlightening. I got to tell you, if I was that family, I don't know if I could sit in that courtroom during the rest of this. I can't. Now, there's going to be a separate murder trial for that third guy that I will tell you about. And once again, this Wainwright guy will be testifying against that third guy in that trial. Good God, that poor family. So that is Judge, Jury, and Journey for today. Let's talk about this day in history. And I'll try to keep it short because there's not a lot going on today. Let's see. Oh, today's Wednesday. Craft with me Wednesday tonight. What am I doing? Oh, I am doing collage quilting tonight. Ooh, tune in. It's going to be fun. Where was I going? Oh, this day in history. This day in history. The telephone is invented. Alexander Graham Bell makes that famous phone call to his assistant in the other room saying, "Can you hear me?" And she could, or he, or whoever it was, they could hear him, which I thought was really interesting. So we have him to blame for these daggum cell phones, right? what has evolved now into the cell phone. Um, yeah, I can't find the story. I don't know what year it was. Way back then. But yeah, Alexander Graham Bell. Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Where was that story? How come I can't find it? Do, 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 do. Where is that story? Oh, also, this picture gets taken, which is really cool. The Martian crater Gale is photographed by Viking Orbiter 1. It's called Happy Face Crater. See? Do you see the happy face in the crater? Because it resembles a smiley face. It was named after astronomer Johann Gottfried Gale and is about 134 miles across. So that is Mars. It looks very barren, doesn't it? It doesn't look inhabitable, but who knows? Yes, the first telephone call. It was in 1876. So, oh, it was a guy. Mr. Watson, come here. I want you. Oh, that's what he said. He didn't say, "Can you hear me?" I always say that. Can you hear me? Whenever you go to Tia's show, if you go to Tia's show tonight, that's how she opens her show. Can you hear me? She doesn't introduce herself. It's just, can you hear me? It's so funny. She's hilarious. All right, guys, it has been a great morning. I'm going to go have my stress test, have some coffee. You know what? I'm feeling pretty good without no coffee. Oh, I don't want to give up my coffee. Does that mean I have to get... I don't want to give up my coffee. And I'm going to have to get some caffeine or the headaches are going to start in. So, do y'all want to hear a joke? Let me go out with a joke. All right. A group of cattle is a herd. It's a cauldron of bats, a murder of crows, and a pod of dolphins. What's a group of children called? Any guesses? It's called a migraine. All right, see y'all tonight in Crop With Me Wednesday, live 6 p.m. Central. And I love you all.